When Rome declared war, most men would have awaited their arrival. They would have fortified ports and gathered ships to challenge the Republic at sea. But Hannibal was no ordinary man. He was the son of Hamilcar, the one marked by the oath, the strategist who saw paths where others found only walls. His mind, as Polybius notes, was capable of spanning distances few generals had even dared to imagine. And so, the war began, not with defense, but with the most audacious maneuver of the century. Hannibal summoned his army to Kart Hadesh. There, under a sun reflecting off the metals of Hispania, rose Iberians, Libyans, Numidians, Balearics, and Carthaginians. Over 90,000 infantry, 12,000 horsemen, and some 40 African elephants that swayed restlessly like living mountains. His officers heard the command. He would not wait for Rome. He would go to her. He would cross unknown lands. He would cross even the mountains the gods had placed to divide worlds. He would cross the Alps. Before departing, he organized Iberia with surgical precision. He left loyal governors, secured tribute, stationed garrisons, and guaranteed the flow of silver. He dispatched his brother, Hasdrubal Barca, to guard the peninsula. Then, at a dawn that would be etched into the memory of all, the army began its march toward the Pyrenees. The first steps were a triumph of order and will. The local tribes, sometimes allies, sometimes reluctant, watched as the multicolored serpent of the army advanced. Rivers were crossed with ingenuity. Polybius explains how Hannibal negotiated with some tribes, intimidated others, and fought only when inevitable. Every hill conquered was not merely a military triumph, but a step toward the impossible. The Pyrenees offered their first true challenge. They were not the Alps, but even here, human endurance was tested. Sharp rocks, narrow passes, and hostile populations attacking from the heights. There were nightly ambushes, rock slides, and whirlwinds of arrows launched from impossible positions. But the army, forged by years of campaigning in Iberia, held firm. There were losses. Some units were sent back to trim the contention and ensure discipline. Hannibal did not want numbers. He wanted flexibility. He wanted a perfect blade to cut through the heart of his enemy. Descending from the Pyrenees, the army entered Gaul, a vast, untamed land, an endless plain pierced by colossal rivers, inhabited by proud peoples and fierce chieftains. Some received Hannibal with gifts, others closed their gates, but he advanced with a determination that disarmed all doubt. The Gauls began to see him as a leader to follow, not an invader. His charisma succeeded where the sword would have failed. The Rhone was the next obstacle, a wide river of treacherous currents, guarded by enemy tribes. Polybius masterfully describes how Hannibal achieved a crossing that seemed unfeasible. He built rafts, coordinated diversionary maneuvers, and sent troops upstream to strike from the rear. When the sun rose on the day of the crossing, the water shimmered with the reflection of thousands of men and animals, moving with almost supernatural order. The Gauls, stunned, recoiled before the precision of the plan. The Carthaginian army crossed undefeated. But the most unsettling news was yet to come, a message brought by scouts. The Romans had sent Publius Cornelius Scipio, father of the future Scipio Africanus, to intercept Hannibal in Gaul. The Carthaginian general smiled. They were already searching for him, but they would not find him there. He made a decision that chilled the blood of his officers. He turned toward the Alps, toward the mountain range that everyone considered the natural frontier between life and death. According to Polybius, no one imagined that an army so vast, accompanied by elephants, could traverse such a wall. It was a defiance of nature itself. The ascent began in early autumn, with cold winds descending like blades. Alpine tribes attacked from the peaks, invisible among the crags. They hurled stones that seemed torn from the very heavens. The path was narrow, treacherous. A single false step meant a plunge into the abyss. Men froze to death, horses slipped, and the elephants suffered in silence, enduring a climate their African skin had never known. The army advanced as if battling the mountain itself. There were days when the cold was so profound that metal seemed to shatter at a touch. There were nights when the snow erased the tracks of the path, forcing exhausted soldiers to rebuild the route with numbed hands. Hannibal did not sleep. He walked among his troops, spoke with the survivors, organized reliefs, and sought alternative routes. Leadership was his refuge, and his sacrifice an inspiration to all. Upon reaching one of the highest passes, the army halted. There, Polybius recounts a scene that would mark the world's memory. Hannibal, surrounded by his officers and the few remaining elephants, pointed with an outstretched arm toward the vast Italian plains, illuminated by a distant sun. He told them that this was the land where he would fight Rome. That vision, seared into the mind of every soldier, filled them with hope and renewed their strength. The descent was even more perilous than the ascent. There were avalanches, landslides, brittle ice, and non-existent paths that had to be carved with fire and vinegar to break the stone. But the army ensured, exhausted, decimated, but invincible in spirit. And when at last the column emerged from the mountains into the Po Valley, Italy trembled. An army that should not exist had arrived, and Rome realized that the true enemy, the most dangerous in her history, was already on her soil.